At some point in life, almost everyone has felt it. That strange feeling when the lights go out and the room suddenly feels different. The same room, the same walls, the same furniture, but somehow it feels unsafe. Why? Why does darkness make the human mind uneasy? Why do shadows feel alive even when we know they are not? And why, even as adults, do we still sometimes feel afraid of the dark? The fear of darkness is not just a childish habit. It is something much older, something built into the human mind over thousands of years. To understand it, we have to go back far before electricity. For most of human history, night was not peaceful. It was dangerous. When the sun disappeared, so did safety. There were no lamps, no street lights, no locked doors, and no glowing screens. Outside the firelight, the dark could hide anything: predators, strangers, accidents. One wrong step in darkness could mean injury or death. In a world like that, fear was useful. The humans who were cautious at night were more likely to survive. The ones who ignored strange sounds were less likely to come back. So, over time, the human brain learned an important lesson. Darkness means uncertainty, and uncertainty means danger. And that old survival system still lives inside us today. Even if you live in a safe house, in a modern city, your brain still carries ancient instincts. It does not care that your bedroom is harmless. It only cares that you cannot see clearly. This is where the mind starts to play tricks. When vision becomes limited, the brain fills in the missing information. A jacket on a chair becomes a person. A pile of clothes becomes a creature. A shadow becomes a threat. The brain would rather make a false alarm than miss a real danger. From an evolutionary view, it is safer to mistake a shadow for a predator than to mistake a predator for a shadow. That is why darkness often feels active. Your senses become less certain. Your imagination becomes louder. And in that quiet space, the mind begins to ask dangerous little questions. What was that sound? Did something move? Am I alone? Most of the time, the answer is simple. Nothing happened. But the mind is not designed to stay calm when information is missing. This is also why children fear the dark so strongly. Children have vivid imaginations, limited control over their environment, and less life experience to a child. Darkness is not just the absence of light. It is a space where anything might exist. As people grow up, they learn what darkness usually contains: a bedroom, a hallway, a backyard. Nothing supernatural, nothing dangerous. But learning does not erase instinct. It only teaches us how to manage it. That is why many adults still feel a small hesitation after turning off the lights. Maybe they walk a little faster back to bed. Maybe they avoid looking into a dark window. Maybe they know there is nothing there, but they still do not want to check. Fear of the dark is not always about monsters. Sometimes it is about the unknown. Darkness hides details, removes certainty, and makes the familiar feel unfamiliar. And the human mind has always struggled with what it cannot fully understand. Think about how different it feels to be alone at night. An empty road in daylight feels ordinary. The same road at night feels heavier, more silent, more tense. The environment has not changed much, but your perception has. Darkness removes information, and when information disappears, the brain becomes cautious. It starts scanning, listening harder, and imagining possibilities, preparing for problems that may not even exist. That is why small sounds seem louder at night. A creaking floor, a tapping window, a dog barking far away. At night, with fewer distractions, the brain gives these sounds more attention, and attention gives them power. The dark is a perfect stage for imagination, not because darkness creates monsters, but because darkness gives the mind room to invent them. And once the imagination starts moving, it is hard to stop. What is interesting is that humans have always fought back against darkness. First with fire, then candles, then lanterns, then electricity. And now many of us keep a tiny sun in our pocket, a phone flashlight. Light gives more than visibility. It gives reassurance. The moment a dark corner becomes visible, the fear often disappears, because fear grows best in uncertainty, and certainty arrives with light. In that sense, fear of the dark is really fear of what might be hidden inside it, not darkness itself, but the possibility of danger, the possibility of something unseen, the possibility of not being in control. And maybe that is why darkness also feels powerful in another way. It does not only scare us, it also forces us to face ourselves. When the world becomes quiet, the mind becomes louder. In darkness, people do not just notice sounds. They notice thoughts, old memories, worries, regrets, questions they avoid during the day. Sometimes the dark feels frightening because it leaves us alone with our own minds. So, when a child fears the dark, it is easy to laugh. But in truth, that fear is deeply human. The child feels it. Openly, the adult hides it behind logic. But both are responding to the same ancient instinct. From the first humans sitting beside a fire to the person lying awake in a quiet apartment tonight, the same nervous system is still at work, still alert, still watchful, still trying to protect us from what cannot be seen. And then morning comes. The shapes return to normal. The shadows lose their mystery. The imagined danger disappears. And what felt heavy in the night suddenly feels harmless again. That is the strange power of darkness. It can transform ordinary spaces into uncertain ones. It can turn silence into tension, and it can make the human mind reveal how deeply it still remembers the past. So why do humans fear the dark? Because for most of our history, fear of darkness helped us survive. Because the brain hates missing information. And because in the dark, imagination and instinct begin to work together. Maybe we do not fear darkness itself. Maybe we fear what we cannot see, what we cannot predict, and what we cannot control. And maybe that is why, even now, a small light can feel so comforting.